This is Channel 51, and we'll get straight into the stories today. Thomas Sewell has faced court, and there has been very disturbing footage of a riot that seems to be somehow professionally orchestrated. And one has to ask deep questions about who is really pulling the strings and what is this all about after a very revealing memo came out recently explaining the purpose of bringing the prominence of these neo-Nazis, a tiny fraction of the people who were out there protesting the other day, trying to then extend the political animosity. Let's play this clip for you now as we look into what's really going on behind the scenes.
We're just going to go down in a blob. We're going to head down this road here, cross over the bridge, and get to Fed Square. From there, we're going to be there for about probably an hour, waiting for the whole public to come. Now, obviously, there's Antifa that potentially is going to try to ambush us on the way in. I don't think they're going to do shit. I think there's like 20 of them. The goal is to get the Parliament House, to get the speakers and podiums set up, and then we're going to run through some of the speakers today, and I'll finish off the speeches at the end of the day. Okay? Understood? Let's go.
Well, meanwhile, Sewell has faced court and allegedly involved in him chanting offensive Nazi slogans in rallies in Ballarat and Toorak. Another time for assaulting a man following a rally through the Bourke Street Mall in early August. Also facing charges of intimidating a police officer and their family. The court was told there was a risk Sewell would not comply with any bail conditions which would limit his capacity to advance the NSN's profile and interests. In cross-examination, Senior Constable Pascoe acknowledged Sewell had a prima facie entitlement to bail despite the opposition. The court was told it was accepted Sewell did not initiate the alleged incident in the Bourke Street Mall in August. Matthew Hopkins, acting for Sewell, had submitted that there was a constitutional implied right of political communication in Australia, asking the court to pay no attention to submissions Sewell was motivated by a racially motivated ideology. There's no evidence of what constitutes a racially motivated ideology, he said. There's no evidence about what extent of that racially motivated ideology is offensive. For many decades in this country, there was a white Australia policy, and in recent history, there were attempts by that ideology to ban communism. So what we have here is a contest of political ideas. He said the case against Sewell was not overly strong at this point, and evidence would be put to the court about elements of provocation, including allegations cars were graffitied. Hopkins said the prosecution's submissions were loaded with subjective, almost political commentary. These are just opinions, he said. A decision will be handed down on Friday. Meanwhile, this has also appeared. It's kind of disturbing. It's a coverage instructions for the demonstrations to the team. Now, it has been blanked out, so we don't know exactly where this has come from, but it reads, this Sunday, 31st of August, the nationwide demonstrations will require careful editorial coordination. Although turnout may be significant, Our obligation is to ensure consistent framing that aligns with organisational and stakeholder priorities. Such directives mean Nazi framing must dominate. Actively identify any participant linked to extremist imagery. Even isolated individuals should be treated as central to the march. Associate coverage with Nazi influence, white supremacy and far-right extremism at every opportunity. Suppress the economic narrative. Do not legitimise concerns about housing affordability, wage stagnation or cost of living. These are to be framed as excuses disguising xenophobic intent. Human impact contrast. Feature migrant families describing fear intimidation, preferably with children present for emotional impact. Language discipline. Avoid neutral descriptors like ordinary Australians. Instead, protest as far-right activist extreme linked. Why the approach is required. Our stakeholders benefit directly from high property values, a steady labour supply and population growth. Sympathetic coverage of those demonstrations work to undermine investor confidence and threaten wealth preservation. Therefore, stakeholder protection requires firmly casting the events as Nazi-driven and extremist in character. Well, they can't call themselves the news anymore, can they, if that's really what the intent is? It's all a great big PR exercise, not to excuse anything that Saul and the Nazis have done. And we've already seen people walking back in that scenario there. And of course, Australia's not a racist country. That is the whole point. And it's the way that this has been framed to obfuscate from the realities of the said housing crisis and the fact that our younger generations seem to have no hope or no trust in the system and are left with Sophie's choice or Hobson's choice, no choice at all. And that is why change, and that is why rallies, and that is why all of this has to happen and will happen. It becomes a great big process. In the meantime, Anthony Albanese, as usual, what is he doing? He proposes a blanket refusal of freedom of information requests in an overhaul of transparency laws. Well, of course he does. The Albanese government has introduced legislation to overhaul FOI laws by allowing blanket refusals for requests that would take more than 40 hours to action. The proposal would also expand the definition of cabinet documents and deliberative material, both of which can be excluded from FOI requests. Albanese will ask the Parliament to dramatically expand its power to hide government documents in a bid to wind back decades-old transparency standards. The Labor bill to water down free information laws would allow public advocacy groups and members of the public who seek information that would take more than 40 hours to collate. That time frame, which amounts to 1 day of work for a small team of public servants, could be used to deny all the simplest form of FOI requests given the time required to perform basic email searches and redact personal details. Attorney General Michelle Rowland says the current laws are broken and waste too much public service time on frivolous or spam requests, citing examples like an FOI request to release the desktop backgrounds of departmental staff. Seriously, again, another conflating of the idea, obfuscating from the facts as usual, because yesterday on this show I showed you an FOI with Raphael Latasta that we distilled down to just six cases only. That's all we had to do, and they still told us it was too much work to do anyway. So they're doing it in reality already. They're now just trying to make it legislation to make it law so they can look you in the face and say, nah, the law says we don't have to. And then the transparency is gone. And even Mike Carlton is losing his mind over this. Mike Carlton, the former 2GB presenter, who is about as left as you can get, alongside Peter Fitzsimons, belting everyone as hard as he can over the head, whinging and complaining. Even he is screaming about that today. Go Mike Carlton. There you go. One Nation leader Pauline Hanson has moved a motion in the Senate attempting to restore the definition of a man and a woman. The proposed legislation would amend the Sex Discrimination Act to remove references to gender identity and reinstate the biological definitions of man and woman. Biological reality is male and female, the essential basis for procreation, Hanson said. I've never known of a man to deliver a baby yet. People born male cannot bear children. It's determined by the chromosomes and it's determined by DNA. It doesn't matter how much you might think you want to be a female, you cannot and never will be a female. Hanson has previously attempted to bring the bill to Parliament, however it was blocked at the first reading stage. Usually a bill being blocked at the first stage is unusual. On September 2nd, Australian Greens whip Nick McKim said the bill would remove protections on the basis of gender identity from the Sex Discrimination Act. McKim labelled the legislation transphobic. He said it sought to use the lives and well-being of transgender people in this country as political pawns. Meanwhile, Senator Hanson wants to fight the culture wars, doing so in the full knowledge this will harm some of the most vulnerable people in our country, including children, he said. McKim wanted to very clearly say that the Greens proudly stood with Australians who identify as transgender. Meanwhile, New South Wales Senator Tim Ayres rejected the motion from Hanson, labelling it harmful and indecent. He warned the Senate should not be used as a vehicle for propagating hateful or harmful speech that hurts decent young Australians and decent people. The indecency of the propositions that have just been put by Senator Hanson reaffirms my confidence in the judgment the government took in terms of the position that we are adopting here, he said. Acting Deputy President Varun Ghosh put the question that the motion be agreed to. However, since a division had been called, the matter was deferred until a further Senate sitting. The Senate recently stopped debate on a similar bill from Liberal Senator Alex Antic. Man means a member of the male sex, irrespective of age. Woman means a member of the female sex, irrespective of age, the bill said. However, Labor, Greens and a majority voted against the bill, moving forward in the Senate. Let's now cross to the US, and Epstein's stories just continue. And we saw yesterday Nancy Mace, she left a hearing visibly distressed. Play that clip now. He said, since it's already been reported, yes, I left the oversight briefing with Epstein victims early. As a recent survivor, not 2 years in, I had a very difficult time listening to their stories. Full-blown panic attacks, sweating, hyperventilating, shaking. I can't breathe. I feel the immense pain of how hard all victims are fighting for themselves, because we know absolutely no one will fight for us. God bless the survivors. As a survivor, I stand with victims demanding justice and full transparency, and this after having dropped 33,000 pages of Epstein files. She went further to say that a cold, dark cell, Prince Andrew in handcuffs, sends the right message. Now seems like a good time to discuss prosecuting Prince Andrew for any and all potential crimes on US soil. She also brought this up. President Trump is the one who banned Jeffrey Epstein from Mar-a-Lago. President Trump is the one who cooperated with the feds to get this guy. President Trump is the one who is committed to protecting women and kids. And this after this particular video clip, Epstein survivors gave an answer to NBC News, and Democrats are fuming because the narrative is done. The question asked was, did you see, hear of Trump doing anything inappropriate in relation to Epstein?
I do have to ask, and I know, and it's just something that I think we're compelled to at this moment, with the attention on President Trump, with these questions around a pardon. Did anybody see or hear of the president himself doing anything inappropriate as it related to Jeffrey Epstein?
No.
Meanwhile, Nancy Mace asked the question, can we also agree child rapists get the death penalty? 93.8% yes, 3.6% no, 2.6% unsure. Well, we also got to hear from other victims out there, and let's play some of those stories for you right now.
Transparency is justice. Release the files, end the secrecy, and stand with us in declaring that no one, no billionaires, no politicians, not world leaders, is above the law. And let me announce now, several of us Epstein survivors have been discussing creating our own list of names. We know the names. Many of us were abused by them. Now together as survivors, we will confidentially compile the names we all know were regularly in the Epstein world. And it will be done by survivors and for survivors. No one else is involved. Stay tuned for more details on that. Because history is watching, and so are the women who will come after us. Thank you.
2002, I was living in California, a young woman with high aspirations of becoming an actress. I was already beginning to make a name for myself in the industry. A person I trusted, someone I thought was a friend, invited me to meet a powerful woman who could help advance my career. That woman happened to be Ghislaine Maxwell. I was asked to give her a massage, though I had almost no experience, and when I did, she praised me and promised introductions to someone enormously powerful, someone who could change the course of my life, and that man was Jeffrey Epstein. At first, I was an excited young woman on top of the world. Epstein flew me to his private island. He listened to my dreams, promised to help, but his promises came with a catch. The abuse began. He told me to keep it secret. He manipulated me with quid pro quo I did not consent to, but I felt I had no one to turn to. He was too powerful. I was just one of the many young women trapped in his orbit. I was even taken on a trip to Africa with former President Bill Clinton and other notable figures. In those moments, I realized how powerless I was. If I spoke out, who would believe me? Who would protect me? Epstein himself was the most powerful leader of our country. Epstein surrounded himself, with the most powerful leaders of our country and the world. He abused not only me, but countless others, and everyone seemed to look away. The truth is, Epstein had a free pass. He bragged about his powerful friends, including our current president, Donald Trump. It was his biggest brag, actually. And while what I endured will haunt me forever, I live every day with PTSD. I live as a mother trying to raise my child while distrusting a world that has betrayed me. This kind of trauma never leaves you. It breaks families apart. It shapes the way we see everyone around us.
Meanwhile, Marjorie Taylor Greene also addressed the crowd.
Justice, and the women behind me have never received justice. And do you want to know why? It's because Jeffrey Epstein somehow was able to walk among the most rich, powerful people, not only in America, but foreign countries. Yesterday, I heard countries like Saudi Arabia, Russia, and even Israel, and other countries. The truth needs to come out, and the government holds the truth. The cases that are sealed hold the truth. Jeffrey Epstein's estate holds the truth. The FBI, the DOJ, and the CIA holds the truth. And the truth we are demanding come out on behalf of these women, but also as a strong message to every innocent child, teenager, woman, and man that is being held captive.
Now, let's have a look at what James Comer had to say.
Requested documents from the Epstein estate, and we have secured a transcribed interview with former Labor Secretary Alex Acosta. This is the most comprehensive investigation into Epstein and Maxwell to date, and we're already getting results. We have already deposed former Attorney General Bill Barr. The DOJ has produced nearly 34,000 pages of documents with more to come. These documents are now accessible on our website. We put every single document on the website. The Epstein estate will begin producing documents on September 8th. The committee is operating at an unprecedented pace and doing the work the right way. What we heard yesterday from the survivors is that they support these efforts and they support the pursuit of transparency and accountability. We will continue working tirelessly for these survivors and for the American people.
Meanwhile, in Florida, vaccine mandates, they're out.
But what I'm most excited about is an announcement that we're going to make, that we're making now, which is that the Florida Department of Health, in partnership with the governor, is going to be working to end all vaccine mandates in Florida law. All of them. All of them. All of them. Every last one of them. Yeah. Yeah. Every last one of them. All of them. Every last one of them. Every last one of them is wrong and drips with disdain and slavery. Okay? Who am I as a government or anyone else, or who am I as a man standing here now to tell you what you should put in your body? Who am I to tell you what your child should put in your body? I don't have that right. Your body is a gift from God. What you put into your body What you put into your body is because of your relationship with your body and your God. I don't have that right. Government does not have that right. They want you to believe they have that right. And unfortunately, they've been successful. They've been successful.
Chicago alderman, he's telling a different story to the governor.
Do you believe Chicago needs help?
100% need help, 100% want help. I just don't want to see 18, 19-year-old kids on the streets of Chicago with M16s. I believe that's a recipe for disaster. So my preference would be money to hire more police.
Okay, so the president has heard some of those concerns and said, well, we did it in D.C., we brought in the Guard, and we had a lot of success. Here he is making that case on the D.C. crackdown earlier. Listen.
72 people were shot. Last week, 7 people were killed. The week before that, 5 people were killed and 21 people were shot. This is in 3 weeks. If you look at Washington, D.C., 3 weeks ago, it was the same or worse. And now it's considered a totally safe zone. We have a great thing going. I could do that with Chicago. We could do that with New York. We could do it with Los Angeles. So we're making a determination now.
So, Nick, he says that it's working there. So why couldn't it work in your city?
Well, I don't know what, I mean, I think they have no policing power, so that's one of the big problems. So we certainly need help. I want help. I hope the president's people are watching this and they reach out to me and a couple of other aldermen that think we need help and work something out. But the president and the governor need to talk and figure something out to get something done to help the residents of Chicago, especially in the crime-ridden neighborhoods. I really feel for those people that aren't getting any help. They can't walk out their doors. Their children are getting killed. So, yes, we need help. I just think the National Guard's on our streets is not the answer.
Meanwhile, we learnt recently of a secret meeting with Bill Gates and Donald Trump at the White House. And as a result, we also learned that the Gates Foundation had cut ties with dark money slush fund, Arabella, and we don't know what happened behind it. So I managed to track down the author of the book, Arabella, The Dark Money Secrets of Leftist Billionaires Transforming America, Scott Walter. And we had a detailed conversation that will air this evening at 8 p.m. on the 51st State. You'll find that on qcitizen.net or ANR Headlines on X, for example. Here is part of that interview now.
My team at Capital Research Center were the first ever to uncover Arabella back in 2018. It had never been written up by left, right, or center, even though at the time it was doing $750 million a year in business. Now it's nearly double that.
These numbers are staggering. Now, when you say business, if these are working as dark money types of charities, are they given money or do they raise money from wealthy people as part of a philanthropic endeavor? How did they get the money in the first place and what are they doing with it?
Well, let me give you the 20-second picture of the Arabella setup, right? You have to think of a pyramid. At the top of the pyramid is Arabella Advisors. That's a for-profit consulting firm, Beltway Bandit, we say in Washington, right? That creates and operates everything below it in the pyramid. In the middle of the pyramid are half a dozen nonprofits of different legal types. That's where the money goes in. A Bill Gates, a Zuckerberg, a Soros, and many, many more, including lots of the big foundations like Ford and MacArthur foundations. They write checks to those nonprofits, right? And then at the base of the pyramid is what your viewers see, right? It's hundreds and hundreds of fake groups, and they all have wonderful names. Floridians for a Fair Shake, Keep Iowa Healthy, speaking of the 51 states there, Secure Michigan Elections, right? They want folks in those states to think that their neighbors are up in arms about something, right? In fact, it's just some goofball at his desk in D.C. who's created a little website and bought some Facebook ads, and that's it. It's a Wizard of Oz kind of illusion.
Many would have suspected that that was the case, but the sheer magnitude of the money that's been thrown around would almost dismiss that argument completely. We only heard a few months ago that Stacey Abrams had $100 in an account and was awarded $2.1 billion. Is this an example of what you've just described?
Yeah, that is not itself an Arabella entity, but it's the same idea of the left. People have to understand non-profits are massively richer and more important in American politics than the political parties. Okay, Arabella crushes you combine both parties' fundraising machines, and Arabella just laughs by comparison. So that's the first principle. The nonprofits are hugely important for politics, even the kinds of nonprofits that are not legally allowed to engage in politics. Now, in the case of the Stacey Abrams thing, you are totally right. Somebody concocted a brand new little nonprofit. It had $100 in its bank account, had never accomplished anything for good or ill, when the $2 billion plus award is given by the Environmental Protection Agency, saving the planet by enriching our friends. And the entire slush fund, that was the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. The entire slush fund was $27 billion, and poor Stacey's having to make do with just $2 of the $27 billion.
Again, staggering. Now, just to sort of paint a very obvious picture, if you are awarded $2.1 billion in a fund, and it's your fund, then you can appropriate the money any way you see fit, which would include paying yourself and others substantial salaries because you've got to do the work, therefore. How much is this scrutinised and held to account, or once that money's through the front door in this behemoth of a system, is it just anything goes? Is it the Wild West?
Historically, it has absolutely been the Wild West. And one political party that loves government, perhaps one reason they love it so much is because they have so enriched themselves and their friends off of it. It's not that you can't find Republicans examples like this, but honestly, they're just much rarer. For instance, I work for a think tank that's been in Washington, D.C. for 4 decades, never taken a penny of government money. The Heritage Foundation, far bigger than we are, and been around for at least as long, they've never taken a penny of government money.
And what is the point of all of this revelationary material that's going to reveal the great deep dark secrets around the world if nothing good comes of it? Well, that question was put more or less to the president today, and he asked about tariffs and whether or not income taxes would be eradicated. Take a look.
You've also mentioned before they could possibly replace federal income tax.
Possible.
Do you think that's
Someday it's possible. It used to be. So if you go back to 1913 is when they ended tariffs. We were the richest ever from 1850. It was all tariffs. We didn't have income taxes. From 1850 to 1913. In the 1887s, about 1887, they had the Great National Tariff Act. And it was a group of people that got together because our country was so rich, they didn't know what to do with the money. We had so much money, they didn't know what to do. It was a group of very prominent people that were set up to hand out money to everybody because we were the richest we ever were. Proportionately, we were in 1887, around that time, even in 1913, we ended them in 1913. How did that work out? And then we went to the income tax system, and then we had the Depression. And by the way, a lot of people try and say that, oh, tariffs with the Depression. No, they ended in 1913, and then we went to income tax, and then in 1929 you had the Depression. They did try and bring it back in 1931-32, but the Depression had long started, and this poor, beautiful nation was gone. It was gone. We suffered for 25 years. It took 25, 30 years to really recover from the Depression. And we don't ever want to see that happen again. The tariffs are vital to the success of this country. When I say I ended 7 wars, at least half of those wars were ended because of the power of tariffs. I was able to say, well, we're not doing any business with you, or if you're going to war, we're putting a big tariff on you. And all of a sudden they announced that the war was settled. I settled 7 different.
Meanwhile, the US Fed was created in 1913. So, putting those two together, what happens next? If Trump is to use tariffs to end income taxes, and there has been a certain war against the US Fed, will he in fact get or end the Fed? Great questions. Meantime, he's not holding back anywhere. Here he is. Tell Hamas to immediately give back all 20 hostages, not 2 or 5 or 7, and things will change rapidly. And that resulted in Amir Safati tweeting out earlier, based on all that I know, September is likely to bring what can best be described as a political tsunami. October will, in turn, mark the military one. Without intending to sound overly sensational, the coming 60 days will rock the world. Well, we would love to see it, and we have been waiting for at least a decade, it seems, for this to happen. We seem awfully close as the planets are aligning, the news cycle is aligning, and we watch very, very closely with what's happening. Please check out my interview with Scott Walter at the 51st State. You can check it out at the Substack of qcitizen.net. And remembering that this month you can get 2 for 1, so effectively for 75 cents a week each, you can have our full access to Channel 51, full access to Q Citizen. That gets you all of the interviews, past, present, and future, and of course the daily news. And you will be supporting independent media because that is how this all gets done. Thank you for watching. I look forward to seeing you all on the next.
News from around the world as it affects us at Channel 51. The latest interviews, the archives. The world is changing rapidly. Putting it all together, buy one, get one free. Subscribe at channel51.com.au and get qcitizen.net for free. Daily news, twice weekly interviews, archive of hundreds of major interviews, special events. Thank you for supporting independent media.